The space around Kepler 442b looked like a metal city floating in the darkness. Thousands of ships from different alien races hung in formation, waiting for the biggest battle the galaxy had ever seen. Each ship was huge, covered in weapons and shields that could destroy planets. Captain Hyunwoo Park stood on the bridge of his ship, the SSV Taeguk. He looked out at the massive fleet through the main window. Next to the other ships, his vessel looked tiny. The Taeguk was only 300 meters long. Most of the alien ships were 10 times that size. "Captain, we're getting more messages," said Sun Hee Nam from the communication station. Her voice was calm, but Park could hear the tension underneath. "The Ethereal Admiral wants to know when we'll show them our secret weapons." Park smiled slightly. "Tell Admiral Thane Ka that our weapons will be ready when the time is right." Sun Hee typed the message and sent it. Within seconds, angry replies came back from several alien commanders. They all wanted to know the same thing. Why did humanity send only one ship? Where was their great fleet? What could 12 humans possibly do against the Vorthan Empire? The Vorthan Empire had been conquering worlds for 10,000 years. They had the biggest fleet anyone had ever seen. Their ships could move faster than light and carried weapons that could crack moons in half. Every species in the galaxy feared them. That's why the coalition had formed. The Ethereals brought their crystal ships that could bend space and time. The hive mind sent their bioships that moved like living creatures and healed damage instantly. The ancient Celestials had awakened their fortress worlds, each one the size of a moon and armed with weapons from the dawn of time. And humanity sent one cargo ship with 12 people. Jimin Ko, the navigator, looked up from her station. "Captain, the alien fleets are positioning us in the rearguard. They think we'll be safer there." "Perfect," Park said. "That's exactly where we need to be." Young Sik Lee, the science officer, was working at his station with intense focus. His hands moved across controls that looked normal, but weren't connected to any system the other species would recognize. "Field generators are at 30% and climbing," he reported quietly. "Good, keep it slow and steady. We don't want anyone to notice yet." The truth was that the Taeguk wasn't a cargo ship at all. It looked like one from the outside, but inside it was something completely different. The cargo holds were filled with equipment that no other species in the galaxy could build or even understand. The crew of 12 weren't just soldiers or scientists. They were specialists in fields of study that most aliens didn't even know existed. Donghyun Shin was monitoring the tactical display when he suddenly straightened up. "Captain, long-range sensors are picking up the Vorthan fleet. They're coming out of hyperspace." Everyone on the bridge turned to look at the main screen. At first, there was nothing but empty space. Then one by one, ships began to appear. But these weren't normal ships materializing from hyperspace. These were massive, dark shapes that seemed to absorb light itself. "Count?" Park asked. "Still counting, sir," Shin replied, his voice getting quieter as the numbers climbed. 1,000, 3,000, 5,000. The Vorthan fleet kept appearing. Each ship was huge, shaped like a black blade cutting through space. They moved in perfect formation, as if controlled by a single mind. Their hulls were covered in weapons that glowed with dark energy. "Final count. 10,437 ships," Shin announced, "plus support vessels. Total enemy force over 12,000 ships." A hush fell over the bridge. Even though they had known this was coming, seeing it was different. The Vorthan fleet stretched across space like a dark ocean, blotting out the stars behind them. Communications started going crazy. Every coalition ship was sending messages at once. Some were asking for orders. Others were sharing target information. Many were just expressing fear or asking if retreat was still possible. "Captain," Sun Hee said, "Admiral Thane Ka is demanding to speak with you directly." Park nodded. "Put him through." The main screen changed to show an ethereal commander. Thane Ka looked like a living crystal sculpture, his body glowing with soft blue light, but that light was flickering with anxiety. "Human Captain Park," Thane Ka's voice came through like wind chimes. "The enemy fleet is much larger than we expected. Our combined forces number only 8,000 ships. We are outnumbered and outgunned. What is humanity's plan?" Park looked directly at the alien commander. "Our plan is to win, Admiral. Trust us. Trust you." Thane Ka's light flared brighter. "You have one small ship. How can one ship make any difference against such numbers?" "You'll see," Park said calmly. "All ships prepare for battle. Fight with everything you have. The Taeguk will be in position when needed. He cut the transmission. Around the bridge, his crew continued their work. Min Ho Choi and his engineering team were in the lower decks, making final adjustments to systems that didn't appear on any official ship blueprints. Yoonjin Kang, the physicist, was monitoring readings that would have driven most species insane to look at. The Vorthan fleet finished forming up and began to advance. They moved slowly, confidently, like predators who knew their prey couldn't escape. Their dark ships seemed to drink in the light from nearby stars. Coalition fleet is moving to intercept, Shin reported. Ethereal ships are beginning phase shift maneuvers. Hive-mind bioships are deploying swarm formations. Celestial fortress worlds are powering up their main weapons. Park watched the tactical display as thousands of ships moved into battle formation. It was beautiful in a deadly way, like watching a dance that would end in destruction. Captain, Young Sik Lee said quietly. Field generation at 50%. We're starting to affect local space-time in a very small area around the ship. Any detection from the other fleets? No, sir. The effect is too small and we're too far back. They think we're just hiding. That was exactly what Park wanted them to think. Let the aliens believe humanity was afraid. Let them focus on the obvious threats while the real work happened in secret. The first weapons fire lit up space between the two fleets. Bright beams of energy crossed the darkness, followed by missiles that looked like tiny stars. The battle for Kepler 442b had begun. But this wasn't just any battle. This was the moment that would decide whether the galaxy remained free or fell under Vorthan rule forever. Every species had brought their best ships and their bravest crews, except humanity. Humanity had brought something else entirely. Park looked around at his crew. Each of them knew what they were really here to do. Each of them knew the price they might have to pay. But they also knew that sometimes one ship could make all the difference. Not because it was the biggest or had the most weapons, but because it could change the rules of the game itself. All stations prepare for Phase 2, Park ordered. The real battle is about to begin. The battle exploded across space like a deadly fireworks show. Coalition ships threw everything they had at the advancing Vorthan fleet. Beams of pure energy lit up the darkness, followed by missiles that burned like miniature suns. The ethereal ships were the first to engage. Their crystal hulls began to glow, and suddenly they weren't there anymore. They had shifted into another dimension, becoming ghost ships that could attack from impossible angles. When they reappeared, they fired weapons that bent reality itself, sending waves of twisted space-time at the enemy. The Vorthan ships absorbed the hits and kept coming. Their dark hulls seemed to drink in the energy attacks and grow stronger. When they fired back, their weapons looked like tears in space itself, releasing dark energy that could unmake matter. Hive Queen Zak 9 commanded 1,000 bioships that moved like a school of fish. These living vessels could heal damage instantly and coordinate perfectly without any communication delays. They swarmed around the larger Vorthan ships, firing bioplasma that ate through metal like acid. But the Vorthans had faced swarm tactics before. Their ships released clouds of smart metal that formed into defensive barriers, blocking the bioplasma while launching countless small drones to hunt down individual bioships. The celestial fortress worlds were the most impressive sight of all. Each one was the size of a small moon, covered in weapons that had been built millions of years ago. When they fired, the beams were so powerful they could be seen from other star systems. They punched holes clean through multiple Vorthan ships at once, yet even these ancient weapons weren't enough. The Vorthan Empire hadn't conquered half the galaxy by being weak. Their ships adapted to every attack. When the ethereals phased out of normal space, the Vorthans followed them into other dimensions. When the bioships tried to heal, Vorthan weapons infected them with nanites that prevented regeneration. Captain Park watched the battle from the bridge of the Taeguk. They were positioned behind the main battle line, exactly where the other coalition commanders expected them to be. To everyone else, it looked like the humans were hiding. Casualties are mounting, reported Donghyun Shin from the tactical station. We've lost over 300 coalition ships in the first hour. Sun Hee Nam was handling communications from dozens of ships at once. Her station was lighting up with distress calls, requests for orders, and increasingly desperate messages from coalition commanders. Captain, Admiral Thane Ka is asking again about our secret weapons, she said. He says they're being pushed back on all fronts. Tell him to hold the line, Park replied calmly. We're not ready yet. But the truth was becoming clear to everyone watching. The Coalition was losing. Despite bringing their most powerful ships and their best technology, they were being slowly overwhelmed by Vorthon numbers and superior tactics. The Vorthon fleet fought like a single organism. When Coalition ships attacked one area, the enemy would shift their formation instantly to cover the weakness. When the aliens tried new tactics, the Vorthons adapted within minutes. It was like fighting an enemy that could learn and evolve in real time. Young Sik Lee looked up from his science station. Captain, field generation is at 70%. We're starting to create measurable distortions in local spacetime. Any detection? Not yet. The battle is generating too much interference. All the energy weapons and exotic matter are masking our signature. That was exactly what Park had hoped. The massive battle wasn't just a fight for survival. It was also perfect cover for what the Taeguk was really doing. Down in the ship's hidden sections, Min Ho Choi and his engineering team worked frantically on equipment that looked nothing like normal ship systems. Instead of metal corridors and computer panels, they were surrounded by devices that seemed to bend light around them and hum with energy that made the air itself vibrate. Power levels are stable, Choi reported over the intercom. Reality anchors are holding firm. We can increase field strength whenever you're ready, Captain. Yoonjin Kang, the physicist, was monitoring readings that would have been impossible for most species to understand. Her screen showed equations that described how the fundamental forces of the universe worked, and how they could be changed. Gravitational constant is fluctuating by 0.001% within our field, she announced. Speed of light has dropped by 0.003%. The effects are still too small to notice, but they're growing. Park nodded. Everything was going according to plan. But outside, the battle was getting worse. A celestial fortress world called Ancient Light was taking heavy fire from a dozen Vorthon dreadnoughts. Its shields were failing and massive explosions were lighting up its surface. When it finally died, the explosion was so bright it temporarily blinded sensors on both sides. We just lost Ancient Light, Shin reported grimly. That's the third fortress world in 2 hours. More bad news kept coming. The ethereal fleet was down to half strength. The hive minds had lost so many bioships that their remaining vessels couldn't maintain swarm coordination. Even the Coalition's reserve fleets were being drawn into the battle and destroyed. Captain Park, Admiral Thane Ka's voice crackled with static and desperation. You must act now. Whatever secret weapon humanity has prepared, use it before we're all destroyed. Other alien commanders joined in. Hive Queen Zach 9 sent rapid clicking sounds that the translator turned into urgent pleas for help. Commander Vex Prime of the Celestials transmitted ancient battle hymns that were really just desperate prayers for salvation. All of them wanted to know the same thing. When would humanity finally reveal their true power? Park looked around at his crew. They were all focused on their tasks, preparing for something that none of the other species could imagine. The Taeguk wasn't just one ship hiding behind the battle lines. It was a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. But it wasn't a weapon that fired energy beams or launched missiles. It was something far more dangerous and far more subtle. Field generation at 85%, Lee reported. We're approaching the threshold where other ships might start to notice anomalies. Time until we reach full power? 43 minutes at current rate. Park checked the tactical display. The Coalition fleet was falling back on all fronts. At their current rate of losses, they would be completely destroyed within the hour. Increase power generation to maximum safe levels, he ordered. We need to be ready sooner. Sir, that might attract attention from the other fleets. The other fleets won't last long enough for it to matter. As if to prove his point, another group of Coalition ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The Vorthon advance was accelerating. Their dark ships moved through the wreckage of their enemies like sharks through bloody water. Captain, Sun He said quietly, I'm getting reports that some ships are preparing to retreat. The outer formations are already requesting permission to withdraw. Park understood their fear. Any sane commander looking at this battle would order a retreat. The Coalition was outgunned, outnumbered, and losing badly. Staying meant certain death. But retreat meant something worse. It meant the Vorthon Empire would win. It meant countless worlds would fall under their rule. It meant the end of freedom for billions of people across the galaxy. Send a message to all Coalition forces, Park said. Tell them to hold their positions for 30 more minutes. Tell them that's all we need. And if they ask what happens in 30 minutes? Park looked out at the battle raging in space. Thousands of ships were fighting and dying while his crew worked on something that would change everything. Something that would prove why humanity sent just one ship when the impossible needed to be done. Tell them they'll understand when they see it. The Coalition's final defensive line was breaking apart. Fourth-hand ships poured through the gaps like dark water through a cracked dam. Their victory seemed certain now. The alien commanders were already discussing retreat routes and evacuation plans. But Captain Park wasn't watching the battle anymore. He was watching his navigation display, where a small green dot showed the Teguk's position relative to Kepler 442b and its moons. They had been slowly moving during the entire fight, not running away but positioning themselves at exactly the right spot in space. "We're in position," announced Jimin Ko from the navigation station. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking slightly as she made final course corrections. "Confirmed," said Young Sik Lee. "We're at the optimal point in the planet's gravitational field. All systems show green for final phase initiation." Park took a deep breath. This was the moment they had trained for. The moment that would either save the galaxy or destroy his ship and crew. "All stations, begin transformation sequence," he ordered. Down in the engine room, Minho Choi activated systems that had never been tested in actual combat. The Teguk began to change. Its hull, which had looked like normal metal, started to unfold like a flower made of machinery. Panels slid away to reveal arrays of equipment that hurt to look at directly. The other Coalition ships noticed immediately. Their sensors were screaming warnings about massive energy buildups from the human vessel. Several alien commanders sent frantic messages asking what was happening. "Captain," Sun He said, "Admiral Thane Ka is demanding an explanation. He says our energy signature just increased by 10,000%. "Put him on screen," Park replied. The ethereal commander appeared on the main display. His crystal body was flashing between different colors, a sign of extreme agitation. Behind him, the bridge of his ship was in chaos as his crew tried to understand what they were seeing. "Captain Park, what is your ship doing? Our sensors show impossible readings from your position." Park looked directly at the alien admiral. "We're preparing to change the rules of engagement, Admiral. All Coalition ships have exactly 7 minutes to reach minimum safe distance from our position." "Safe distance? What are you talking about?" "We're going to alter the fundamental constants of physics in this region of space. Any ship within our effect radius when we reach full power will experience difficulties." Thane Ka's entire body went white with shock. "That's impossible. No one can change the laws of physics." "Humans can," Park said simply. "All ships begin emergency withdrawal now. This is not a request." He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. Around the bridge, everyone was working with focused intensity. This was what they had spent years preparing for. This was why the human government had built only one ship like the Teguk. Tactical Officer Dong Hyun Shin was monitoring the battlefield. "Fourth Fleet is redirecting toward us. They've detected our energy buildup and are moving to investigate." "How many ships?" "Approximately 3,000 vessels breaking off from the main attack to converge on our position." Park nodded. That was actually better than expected. The more Vorthan ships that came to investigate, the more would be caught in the effect field when it activated. Dr. Bora Lim, the ship's theoretical physicist, was working at a station that looked more like art than technology. Streams of light flowed through transparent tubes, and mathematical equations appeared in midair as holograms. "Captain, we're approaching the point of no return," she announced. "Once we begin full-scale reality manipulation, we won't be able to shut down without causing a catastrophic space-time rupture." "Understood." "How long until we reach full effect?" 4 minutes, 30 seconds. On the main screen, the approaching Vorthon ships were getting larger. These weren't the massive dreadnoughts from the main fleet. These were smaller, faster vessels designed for investigation and first contact. They were perfect for what Park needed. The lead Vorthan ship sent a transmission. The alien voice was harsh and mechanical, speaking through a universal translator. "Human vessel, you will cease all activities and prepare to be boarded. Your energy emissions are disrupting local space. Compliance is mandatory." Park almost smiled. The Vorthans had no idea what they were really detecting. To them, it probably looked like the humans were charging some kind of massive weapon. They thought they could stop it by destroying one small ship. "Engineering report," Park called out. Minho Choi's voice came over the intercom. "Hull transformation is 90% complete. Reality manipulation field is stable and expanding. We're starting to affect the behavior of light within a 1,000-kilometer radius. That was when the Vorthan ships made their mistake. They opened fire. Energy beams that could have destroyed mountains hit the Teguk's shields and simply disappeared. Not absorbed or deflected, but actually ceased to exist. The space around the human ship was starting to operate under different rules of physics, rules where the Vorthan weapons couldn't function properly. "Impossible," came the mechanical voice from the Vorthan ship. "Our weapons are not responding normally." More Vorthan vessels arrived and added their firepower to the attack. Missiles, plasma bolts, exotic matter torpedoes, everything they had. The weapons entered the field around the Teguk and began to behave strangely. Some slowed down until they were barely moving. Others changed direction randomly. A few seemed to age rapidly and fell apart before reaching their target. "Field expansion is accelerating," reported Enjin Kang from her physics station. "We're now affecting fundamental constants within a 50,000-kilometer sphere. Electromagnetic force is down by 2%. Gravitational constant is fluctuating. Speed of light is variable depending on location within the field." The Vorthan ships were starting to experience problems. Their faster-than-light drives were shutting down as the laws that governed hyperspace travel changed around them. Their energy weapons were firing at reduced power or not firing at all. Some ships were reporting that their hull materials were becoming unstable. "Captain," Donghyun Shin said with amazement in his voice, "the Vorthan ships are dead in space. Their technology isn't working inside our field." Park allowed himself a small smile. "That's the point. Signal all coalition forces to jump to hyperspace immediately. Final warning. Most of the alien ships had already begun their emergency retreats. They might not understand what humanity was doing, but they could see the effects. The space around the Teguk was becoming something new, somewhere that operated under different physical laws." Young-Sik Lee looked up from his station with concern. "Captain, we're approaching critical thresholds. The field is becoming self-sustaining, but the strain on our systems is enormous. We're going to start experiencing internal effects soon." Park knew what that meant. The crew of the Teguk could only maintain the field by staying inside a small bubble of normal space-time within their own ship. But as the field grew stronger, maintaining that bubble would become impossible. "How much longer can we hold it? At current expansion rate, maybe 10 minutes before our internal systems start failing. And how long to affect the entire Vorthan fleet in this system?" Lee checked his calculations. Full coverage would require at least 15 minutes. Park looked around at his crew. Every one of them knew what those numbers meant. To complete their mission, to trap the entire Vorthan invasion fleet in altered physics, they would have to push the field beyond the point where their own ship could survive. It was the choice they had known they might have to make. The price of changing the rules of reality itself. "Continue the expansion," Park ordered quietly. "We came here to win this war no matter the cost." Around him, his crew worked with calm determination. They were about to prove that sometimes one ship could make all the difference, not through superior firepower, but through the uniquely human ability to look at the impossible and find a way to make it work. The field continued to grow, and with it, the area where Vorthan technology simply could not function. The Vorthan Empire had built their power on a simple idea. Bigger fleets with better technology would always win. For 10,000 years, this had been true. No enemy had ever found a way around their massive ships and superior weapons, but the Vorthans had never fought humans before. Navigation specialist Jae Sung Oh watched his instruments with growing excitement. The field around the Teguk was expanding faster now, reaching out like invisible fingers to touch more and more Vorthan ships. Each vessel that entered the affected area immediately began having problems. "Field radius now at 200,000 kilometers and growing," he reported. "We're catching their outer patrol ships." On the main screen, they could see Vorthan vessels trying desperately to escape the expanding zone of altered physics. But their faster-than-light drives weren't working properly anymore. Ships that should have been able to cross star systems in minutes were now crawling along at normal space speeds. Engineer Seok Jin An was monitoring the field's effects from his station in the lower deck. His screens showed readouts that would have been meaningless to any other species in the galaxy. Humans were the only ones who had learned to treat the fundamental constants of reality like adjustable settings. "It's beautiful," he said into his communicator. "The Vorthan ships are designed for specific physical laws. When we change those laws, their technology becomes useless. It's like forcing fish to live on dry land." Captain Park could see the truth of that statement on his tactical display. The mighty Vorthan fleet was slowly becoming a collection of floating metal boxes. Their weapons stopped working when electromagnetic forces weakened. Their shields failed when gravitational constants changed. Their computers crashed when the speed of light became variable. But the process was incredibly dangerous for the Teguk's crew. The ship was like a small bubble of normal space-time, floating in an ocean of altered physics. Maintaining that bubble required enormous amounts of energy and precise control of systems that had never been tested under combat conditions. Communications Officer Haiwan Baek was having trouble keeping their internal systems stable. Captain, we're getting cascade failures in multiple systems. Life support is fluctuating. Artificial gravity is becoming unreliable in some sections. Can we maintain crew safety? For now, yes. But if we increase field strength much more, we'll start having serious problems. Park looked at the tactical display. They had affected maybe a quarter of the Vorthan fleet so far. Thousands of enemy ships were still operating normally outside the field's reach. If the Teguk stopped now, most of the invasion force would escape to threaten other worlds. Sir, said Donghyun Shin from Tactical, we're getting reports from coalition ships that jumped to safety. They say the Vorthan vessels outside our field are attempting to retreat from the system. That made sense. The Vorthan commanders weren't stupid. They could see what was happening to their ships inside the expanding zone. They knew that staying meant losing their entire fleet to some incomprehensible human weapon, but Park couldn't let them escape. This wasn't just about one battle or one system. This was about ending the Vorthan Empire's expansion permanently. If even part of their fleet survived, they would adapt their technology and come back stronger. All stations, prepare for maximum field expansion, he ordered. Dr. So Young-han, the ship's quantum engineer, looked up from her station with alarm. Captain, that will push us far beyond safe operating limits. We'll be affecting an area over 1 light hour in diameter. The power requirements alone could destroy the ship. What about the crew? Han hesitated before answering. The human nervous system can only handle so much reality distortion. If we maintain maximum field strength for more than a few minutes, the effects will be permanent. Park understood what she wasn't saying directly. At maximum power, the field would change local physics so drastically that human biology couldn't survive it. The crew would die not from any injury or disease, but from existing in a universe that operated under different rules. He looked around at his crew. These 12 people had volunteered for a mission they knew might be one way. They had trained for years to operate equipment that no one else in the galaxy could even understand. They were the best humanity had to offer, and they were ready to give their lives to save the galaxy. I need a vote, Park said quietly. Maximum field expansion will affect the entire Vorthan fleet, but it will also kill us. We can stop now and save ourselves, or we can finish the mission and end this war permanently. One by one, his crew members raised their hands. Not a single person hesitated. They had come here to do a job and they were going to finish it. Unanimous, Park said with pride. Begin maximum expansion sequence. The Teguk began to change again. The hull transformation that had started earlier was now complete, revealing arrays of exotic matter manipulators and quantum field generators that hurt to look at directly. The ship no longer looked like something built by any known technology. It looked like a piece of advanced mathematics made physical. Young Sik Lee was coordinating the expansion from his science station. Field growth rate increasing exponentially. We're now affecting physics within a sphere 3 million kilometers in diameter. The effects were immediate and dramatic. Fourth-hand ships throughout the system found their technology failing all at once. Faster-than-light drives shut down permanently. Weapon systems went offline. Even basic life support began having problems as the fundamental forces that powered their equipment changed. Captain, Shin reported with amazement, the entire Vorthan fleet is dead in space. Every ship in the system has been affected, but the victory was coming at a price. Inside the Teguk, systems were failing as the ship struggled to maintain a pocket of normal physics for its crew. The lights flickered. The artificial gravity wavered. The air itself seemed to vibrate strangely. Medical Officer In Soo Yoon was monitoring the crew's health. His readings showed what everyone could feel. The altered physics were affecting their bodies at the cellular level. They were slowly becoming incompatible with normal space-time. Captain, the field is affecting us now. We have maybe 5 minutes before the changes become irreversible. Park nodded calmly. He had expected this. Signal all coalition forces. Tell them the Vorthon fleet has been neutralized. Tell them to wait 24 hours before entering the system. Why 24 hours? That's how long the field effects should last after we're gone. The altered physics will gradually return to normal, but the Vorthon ships will still be stranded. Their technology will need to be completely rebuilt to work in normal space-time again. As if to confirm his words, reports started coming in from across the galaxy. Coalition monitoring stations were detecting strange readings from every system where Vorthon ships were operating. The field effect had somehow propagated instantly through quantum space, creating temporary zones of altered physics wherever the enemy fleet was located. The Vorthon Empire's 10,000-year expansion had ended in a matter of minutes, but the Teguk and her crew were paying the ultimate price for this victory. One by one, the crew members began to fade from normal existence. They weren't dying in any conventional sense. They were becoming something else, something that couldn't exist in regular space-time. Park felt the change beginning in himself. His body was starting to feel insubstantial, as if he was becoming more energy than matter. Around him, his crew continued working even as they faded from physical existence. "Captain," young Sik Lee said, his voice becoming distant and echoing strangely. "Field expansion is complete. Every Vorthon ship in the galaxy has been affected. The war is over." Park smiled as he looked around at his fading crew. They had done the impossible. They had changed the rules of reality itself and saved the galaxy from eternal conquest. Sometimes one ship really could make all the difference. Captain Hyunwoo Park felt reality slipping away from him like water through his fingers. His body was becoming transparent, more energy than matter. Around him on the bridge, his crew was experiencing the same transformation. They were still there, but not in any way that normal physics could explain. The main screen showed the results of their sacrifice. Thousands of Vorthon ships hung motionless in space, their dark hulls now just empty metal shells. The mighty war fleet that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia was nothing more than floating debris. "Captain." Young Sik Lee's voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. His physical form was barely visible now, like a ghost made of starlight. "The quantum field is stabilizing. The effects will be permanent for any technology built using standard physics." Park nodded, though the gesture felt strange when he wasn't entirely sure he still had a physical form. "What about the propagation effect? The reports from other systems?" Dr. So Young Han answered from her station, her words echoing strangely in the altered space-time around them. "The field effect has spread through quantum foam to every location where Vorthon ships exist. It's instantaneous across the galaxy. Their entire fleet everywhere has been neutralized. It was almost too much to believe. The Vorthon Empire had controlled thousands of worlds across half the galaxy. Their fleets had been scattered across countless star systems, ready to crush any resistance. And now, in the space of a few minutes, all of that power had been rendered useless. The communication system crackled to life one last time. Messages were flooding in from across known space. Coalition monitoring stations, resistance groups on occupied worlds, even isolated human colonies were all reporting the same thing. Vorthon ships were simply stopping. "Captain Park," came Admiral Thane Ka's voice, filled with wonder and disbelief. "Our long-range sensors show Vorthon fleets throughout the galaxy going dark. What have you done?" Park tried to speak but found his voice changing, becoming something more than sound. When he finally managed to respond, his words seemed to come from the quantum field itself rather than his throat. "We changed the game, Admiral. The Vorthon advantage was based on their mastery of conventional physics. We made conventional physics obsolete in any area where their ships operate. But at what cost?" Thane Ka's crystal form flickered with sorrow on the screen. "Our sensors can barely detect your ship anymore." We're becoming something else," Park replied honestly. "Something that exists between normal space-time and quantum possibility. We're not dying exactly. We're just changing into something that can survive in altered reality." Medical Officer In Soo-yoon managed a weak laugh from his station. Even as his physical form dissolved into energy, he was still checking readings on his instruments. "The irony is perfect, isn't it? We spent years learning how to change physics, and now physics is changing us." Around the bridge, the crew continued their work even as they transformed into beings of pure energy and information. They were monitoring the field effects, ensuring the changes would be permanent, making sure the victory was complete. Communications Officer Hyewan Bayek was receiving the final reports from across the galaxy. Her voice was like wind through space as she summarized what they were learning. Vorthan occupation forces on Rigel Prime have surrendered. Their weapons and ships are completely non-functional. Local resistance forces are reporting that entire Vorthan battle groups are requesting rescue from their own stranded fleets. Engineer Minho Choi was laughing, a sound like distant music. Their ships were designed for one set of universal constants. Change those constants even slightly, and 10,000 years of engineering becomes worthless. It's like they built their entire civilization on a foundation that we just made disappear. The transformation was accelerating now. The crew of the Taeguk was spreading out into the quantum field, becoming part of the altered spacetime they had created. They weren't disappearing. They were evolving into something that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Navigator Jae Sung Oh was the first to fully complete the change. His physical form dissolved completely, but his consciousness remained, spread throughout the field like a protective presence. I can see everything now. His voice whispered from the quantum foam. Every ship, every world, every place where our field touches reality. We're not just changing physics, we're becoming the guardians of those changes. Park understood. They weren't just dying to save the galaxy. They were transforming into something that could protect it permanently. The field they had created wasn't just a weapon. It was a new form of existence that they would inhabit forever. One by one, the rest of the crew followed Jae Sung's transformation. Physicist Yoonjin Kang became a pattern of pure mathematics woven into spacetime. Engineer Seokjin An merged with the quantum field generators, becoming the living embodiment of altered physics. Each crew member found their own way to exist in the new reality they had created. Park was the last to transform. As captain, he held on to physical existence just long enough to send one final message to the Coalition fleet. This is Captain Hyun-woo Park of the SSV Taeguk. The Vorthan Empire has been defeated. Their technology is now useless throughout the galaxy. The war is over. He paused, looking out at the stars one last time with human eyes. Tell the galaxy that 12 humans gave their lives to change the rules of reality itself. Tell them we didn't win through superior firepower or bigger fleets. We won by understanding that the universe has more possibilities than any one species can imagine. Admiral Thane Ka's voice came through the static. Captain, what should we tell your people? How do we explain what happened here? Park smiled as he felt his physical form beginning to dissolve. Tell them that sometimes one ship makes all the difference. Not because it's the strongest or the fastest, but because it carries people willing to rewrite the laws of physics themselves. His body became light, then energy, then something beyond both, but his consciousness remained, joining his crew in the quantum field that now surrounded the battlefield. They were still there, still watching, still protecting the galaxy they had died to save. The last thing Park experienced as a physical being was the sight of Coalition ships returning to normal space around Kepler 442b. The battle was over. The Vorthon fleet was nothing but empty hulls drifting in space. The galaxy was free, and in the quantum foam that permeated all of spacetime, 12 human souls took up their eternal watch. They had become something new. Guardians who existed between dimensions, protectors who could touch any point in the galaxy instantly. The Vorthan Empire fell within days. Without their ships, without their weapons, without any technology that could function in the new physics that surrounded their forces, they had no choice but to surrender. Occupied worlds were liberated. Enslaved populations went free. The 10,000-year reign of terror was over. But the greatest victory wasn't the end of the empire. It was the proof that no tyranny was permanent. No enemy was unbeatable. Sometimes all it took was one ship, 12 people, and the willingness to change the universe itself. In the years that followed, when new threats emerged, Coalition forces would sometimes detect strange readings in space. Quantum fluctuations that helped their weapons work better. Gravitational anomalies that made their ships faster. Small changes in physics that always seemed to favor freedom over oppression. The crew of the Taeguk had kept their promise. They were still out there, still watching, still protecting the galaxy they had sacrificed everything to save. And whenever someone asked how 12 humans in one small ship had defeated the mightiest empire in galactic history, the answer was always the same. They changed the rules.